Welcome to the ZimmCast, a program dedicated to bringing you what's new in agricultural marketing. The ZimmCast is the official podcast of AgWired and hosted by Chuck and Cindy Zimmerman.
Hello and welcome to the ZimmCast. I'm Chuck Zimmerman. In this episode, we'll get a preview of the AgGateway Annual Conference that'll be starting November 11th in Austin, Texas. I talked with Brent Kemp, President and CEO, about what AgGateway works to accomplish and what the schedule looks like. I'll be there to take photos and collect some good interviews and session audio. I'll be going straight from there then to Kansas City for a day of the NAFB Convention before heading back to ZimmComm World Headquarters. Brent, let's get started talking about the AgGateway annual meeting that's coming up, and we want a little preview of that. And I know there's a lot of different parts for this conference, but start out first of all, where are we going to be? What is it that brought us there? And then we'll kind of talk about what sets this annual meeting of yours apart.
Absolutely. Thanks very much. So AgGateway will be meeting at the Downright Austin Hotel in Austin, Texas from the 11th, 12th, and 13th of November. This is our annual meeting as an organization, and we do a couple of different things. Number one, we recognize the hard work and the successes that our volunteers have achieved over the course of the past year. Number two, we spend a lot of time networking and helping those volunteers and others build and extend professional networks. And then three, we do the work of the organization. A lot of conferences at their annual meeting, it really is just that. Recognize what's going on. Maybe there's an educational track, but we actually have, as part of our conference track, working group meetings, meetups for industry segments and interest groups. All of those breakout opportunities to identify new work, proceed on the work that's already on the docket, and then finalize and publish resources for the members in the industry.
So there are kind of like different tracks, if you will, with things like education and working groups. What is it that you start out with before I know we get to a point there with an opening general session?
So Monday morning, we have a couple of different tracks that are going on. The first that I want to highlight is for a student group. We have a program that's been with AgGateway for at least the last 10 years, if not longer, called Gateway to Ag Careers. And that brings in highly motivated, highly talented young people, undergraduates, and in some cases graduate students from universities across North America. And we've had interest from participants as far away as Bulgaria to be part of the program. But it's sponsored by an Ag CIO roundtable, and it brings, like I said, these highly motivated young people together to do a couple of things. It helps them build their own professional networks as they get started out, but it also allows the industry volunteers and members who are participating to get to know a little bit more about what's going on in agriculture programs in universities today. What are the things that these young people are interested in studying? What are some of the things that they're doing? And so Monday morning, we'll be integrating that cohort of 10 students into the conference itself. We also have a couple of working groups that will be meeting to dive into and continue work on weather data API. That's working to standardize some of the data that's necessary for exchanging weather and climate information between systems and organizations. And then we'll follow that with the MODIS working group. MODIS is a laboratory data standard really around soil testing. And there are a couple of different formats for that that will be discussed and worked on in that initial working group. We also have time for our member companies who are working to get their systems connected in some way to sit down with each other and kind of talk through challenges, opportunities, build that development schedule out, or just talk through how is the relationship going? And we call those quick connect meetings. Other associations may call that a doing business with meeting, but it's something that member companies can schedule through our member services team, reserve that space and time for the conversation, and know that they've got somebody there, manufacturer to distributor to retailer, whomever, to really talk through. And then we get into the meat of the conference. Like you said, our opening general session will be Monday afternoon, kicks off at 1 o'clock Central Time. We'll talk a little bit about the progress the organization has made in 2024 and put that into the context of fourth year of our 5-year strategic plan. And then we've got a really great panel discussion that's going to be facilitated by Jeremy Wilson. He's our Executive Vice President, Chief Operating Officer. And this is really all around data gathering for environmental reporting. We have a number of programs that are out there, whether it's climate related or carbon sequestration or climate smart commodities, all of these things that are being driven by and supported by data. And Jeremy's collected a really great selection of folks to talk about what's the reality on the ground. How is that actually working? What's the data that's being collected? What's working? What's successful? And where are there still opportunities to improve? We've got folks from the retail space as well as a representative of an equipment company, but he's got kind of a global sustainability focus. So he brings a slightly different tweak to the data question there. We think this is going to be a great panel, and we think that that's going to drive a lot of the conversations going into the rest of the week.
Well, it might be a good time before we go further on the schedule for folks that maybe just don't fully understand that with AgGateway, there is a lot of technology-based terms that are what you guys are working with, like AGES, for example, and what does that mean? And, But, when you mentioned the panel and environmental reporting, no, we're not talking about the media, per se. So, but what's the purpose of AgGateway and what's your overriding goal?
So AgGateway is a consortium of like-minded companies that are all interested in the efficient generation, exchange, and use of data in agriculture. And it doesn't matter if you are a multinational seed and chemical manufacturer, down through an ag retailer, an equipment manufacturer, one of the OEMs who's putting sensors and cameras and smart sprayers and things like that on tractors and implements. All of those folks are interested in generating, exchanging data for different business purposes. And AgGateway members recognize that there's a need to do that efficiently and effectively. And that the best way to do that, so that they're not building one-off implementations over and over again, is to do that in agreed upon standards. And so AgGateway provides the forum for companies to come together, agree on the problem, the business problem first that they want to solve, and then tackle it with IT or data specific standards, whether that's a standard process, what we call a business message, right? The payload that's being exchanged, or in some cases, stepping back even from the payload and just describing the metadata that goes along with that message payload. How do I understand the information that's coming through? So I sometimes hear folks say, where's the easy button for data interoperability in agriculture? And unfortunately, right now, there's really not an easy button. But what AgGateway members are working on is that foundational layer of technology and vocabulary to enable an easy button in the future. There's a lot of work going on. It's really exciting. And our members are pushing towards a future when data flows like water does in the US today, right? You turn on your tap, you don't worry about where the water has come from. You don't worry about the quality of the water. You just know that you're going to use it for something. I'm going to wash the car. I'm going to wash my clothes. I'm going to cook dinner. I'm going to wash my face. I'm going to drink it. right? At some point, if we're successful in building the resources and relationships necessary, then data in agriculture is going to move like that. And it doesn't matter whether you're tracking your inventory at a retail location or you're loading a file into your planter to know exactly what seed is going in exactly what part of your ground. That's just going to happen. And you're going to be able to do your business and not worry about, does this format match my back-end system, or can I import this electronically, or do I have to save it to a flash drive? It'll be like water. And that's what we're all about.
I like the idea of an easy button, and maybe one that can do all kinds of different things, actually. But as we
it's an easy dial.
Yeah, exactly. It's true. So as we go a little further into the meeting, then there are some very specific working groups and things that are being worked on. Any you might want to highlight there?
Yeah, one of the big ones for our supply chain members is on the Entity ID working group. And this ties to a resource that we call AGIS, the Ag Industry Identification System. AGIS hosts a directory of businesses, locations, products, and things like that that are all enumerated with a unique identifier, so that whether it's manufacturer A talking to distributor B or manufacturer X talking to distributor B, they all agree that these locations, businesses, and so forth mean the same thing using a unique identifier. And AGIS, in one form or another, has been around for longer than I've been in the industry, and this will be 29 years for me. And a lot of the rules for how different pieces of information in that resource are enumerated, who's allowed to enumerate something, how do we verify that a retailer is really a retailer at this address, that kind of thing. Those rules have been around as long as I have. So this is an opportunity for those folks who are interested in supply chain efficiency to sit down and say, okay, how are we doing business today? And how do we need to evolve these rules so that the unique identifiers that we're passing through are still meaningful? How do we have that value out of the resource? And that group's been working pretty diligently since June to develop some process documentation that we'll go over at the conference. And then we're going to start really diving into some of those topics around what do we need for verification purposes? What does it really mean to be a business entity in agriculture? And how can we ensure that we don't have duplicate identifiers or identifiers that appear to be duplicated within the resource? And how can we leverage this for other resources elsewhere? So that's one that has a lot of interest right now, and I think we're going to see a lot of interest in at the conference. On the field operations side, and extending a little bit further, there are a couple that I would call out. The ADAPT working group is really around AgGateway's Ag Data Application Programming Toolkit. It's been around since 2016 in some form or fashion, maybe a little before then. But the work that AgGateway has been doing over the course of the last year is to take what is essentially, like I said, a toolkit, a data model, and some code that allows equipment manufacturers and those interested in equipment data to work from OEM formats and translate that into a common format that they can then consume. Kind of separate that programming application notion of ADAPT to a file format specific standard. Version 1 of ADAPT standard was released shortly after our mid-year meeting in June. And this work is going to continue to drive through, okay, where are we? What does the adoption look like moving forward? How do these two resources relate to each other. For those who want to go down the ADAPT toolkit path, what does that look like? For those who are interested in ADAPT standard, what does that look like? So that's definitely one. And then two others that I think are going to be really interesting are a working group on data ethics. And right now we're kind of thinking of that as a panel as well. And then finally, a review of some international work that's going on. The International Organization for Standardization has a new technical committee on data-driven agriculture. And many AgGateway members are participating in that. Many others are just interested in what's going on. And so we'll have about an hour's worth of update on that topic to share. And that's aside from all of the education and meetups and presentations from the students that we have going on.
And committees, and that's going to include the next general session too on day 2.
We're continuing that discussion of environmental reporting and extending it into sustainability data, especially around what other industries and other segments are doing in that space, and how can we as agriculture stakeholders learn from the things that have gone well and the things that they're continuing to struggle with. We've got a great presenter in Andrew Selk, who's a partner with Kearney in their agriculture and food practice, and we're really excited to have him there to talk to our membership.
Well, besides these sessions and meetings, which in large part are a form of networking, you also do have some time for everybody to kind of get together and network and relax a little bit too.
Absolutely. It wouldn't be an ag conference without networking opportunities. And we do have breaks during the day. It's not a full agenda of running from meeting room to meeting room. We've got lots of opportunities for half-hour breaks and lunches either on your own, or Wednesday we have a sponsored networking lunch that will help us close out the week in high fashion. And then Monday and Tuesday evening, we have sponsored networking receptions for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. And it gives attendees an opportunity to catch up, to reconnect since the last time they've seen each other. And like I said, to allow those companies that work together to make plans for further conversation over dinner, maybe, or for folks who have never met each other in person to go out and start building those and extending those professional networks.
So this meeting is also one at which, say it's the working groups or what have you, but where some decisions get made, which then can be, I guess, what gives you the plan for the next year then.
Most of the planning for 2025 at a high level from that kind of architectural level has been completed, and we'll be sharing a little bit of that with the members in the general session on day 1, right? What is the work plan for 2025 look like? But you're absolutely right. As an organization that's driven by the needs of our members and what they're interested in participating in, those industry meetups or those interest meetups generate ideas that ultimately turn into a working group, right? The entity ID working group, entity rules working group came from members saying, hey, what's working today or what's in place today isn't working for us. And we still find value in the notion of an industry standard. Let's make sure that it's something that really does work for us. The working group to extend some of the image metadata, the PICS working group, same thing. Stakeholders came to AgGateway and said, we need a place to have this conversation. And that's what those meetups are all about. The board of directors will be meeting on Monday morning and Monday afternoon to start or continue the process of ideating on our next 5-year strategic plan. So even though we're heading into the last year of our current plan, we need to move forward. We need to lay the course for AgGateway to continue forward in 2026 to 2030. So the board of directors is going to be working through some output that has been done virtually, really diving into what are the opportunities for the organization, where are those areas where we see not necessarily threats, but certainly challenges that we either want to overcome, we want to avoid, or we need to retool the organization so that it's not a challenge for us. Looking forward to doing that with the board. They've been a great group to work with this past year. We'll be saying farewell to Scott Sharbo, who's our current board chair, and we look forward to welcoming Karen Order with Winfield Land O'Lakes as our incoming board chair for 2025.
Well, I'm looking forward to the meeting because we've been to this a couple of years now, and it's fascinating. And to see just even in a couple of years how much more AgGateway is doing, especially like on the international level.
Yeah, we'll have some representatives from our Latin America region, primarily Brazil, but not exclusively Brazil, with us. We have, I believe, a couple of representatives from our Europe region. They're each having their own regional year-end meetings here at the same time, so that the schedule just didn't quite align for everybody to get together. But the whole notion of the work that we do is that what's applicable in one region should apply across the globe, and we're leveraging the expertise that our members in industry have and academia have and other segments have to build best of breed standards and resources. So what we may look at for Europe for the coming year is really around some of the digital sustainability reporting requirements that they have. A lot of what we see in the United States starts in Europe, and then it goes to California, and then it goes elsewhere, right? So what can we learn? How can we help influence the work that's going on there? And what do we see in terms of data that's being identified as required for some of those programs? Those are the kinds of conversations that they're having down in Brazil. They're really focused on carbon data, climate data, and just connectivity in general. It's a huge space. If your listeners haven't been there, it's just amazingly diverse in terms of agriculture. But we think we've got it bad in the United States with connectivity. Brazil is orders of magnitude larger and orders of magnitude more challenging for that. So that's really what they're focused on, and they're learning from us in North America. We're learning from some of the practices that they have. It's really great, and look forward to seeing our folks continue to work together to build those best of breed resources.
All right, Brent, then let's have a closing remark as we look forward to the conference coming up in Austin shortly.
We look forward to welcoming all comers to AgGateway's annual meeting, November 11th through the 13th in Austin, Texas. If it's your first meeting, it's going to be overwhelming, but you're going to come out just amazed at the breadth of technology and interoperability, and most important, the willingness of the industry to work together to solve common problems. A lot of the times we think of agriculture as being standoffish, right? Maybe technology laggards. We're not. In some cases, we're leading technology implementation and discovery. And I think AgGateway is a great place to come and see how that's being applied on the ground and how companies are doing some really innovative work. I guess the last thing I would say is a shout out to our conference committee for setting up the planning, finding the location, and one of the things that we always get good feedback on is the food at our conferences. And I'm sure that being in Texas and being in Austin, we're going to have some great food for attendees.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Brent, for giving us a preview of this year's AgGateway Annual Convention.
Yeah, thank you, Chuck. It's been a pleasure.
Looking over the last years that I've attended AgGateway meetings, it seems to just continue growing and refining the work that they do. So that's the ZimmCast for now. I hope you enjoy it, and thank you for listening.
You've been listening to the ZimmCast, the official podcast of AgWired. Check us out at www.agwired.com to find out what's new in agricultural marketing.